Good morning, everybody. On behalf of Vetiva Capital Management and our media partners at Frontier Africa Reports, we would like to welcome you all to this Wednesday edition of our breakfast meeting. It is the 5th of May, 2021. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and is also being broadcast live on our Vetiva online page on Facebook. The audio file may be shared with third parties. This meeting is set to last for 30 minutes inclusive of Q&A. On our agenda today, we will get a usual rundown of the equity market from Shemun, our trader for that space, after which we'll move to Luke, our team lead who at Vetiva Research, who will talk about MTN's Q1 21 numbers. After this, we'll move to Amorige, our fixed income trader for fixed income and currencies, and then we will conclude with our media partners with their own updates. We will now start off with Shemun and the equity space. Good morning, Shemun.
Good morning, Chidozie, and good morning, everyone. So we'll start off reviewing performances of two of the major markets in West Africa. We'll start off with BRVM, where the composite index continued on its impressive run with a 35 basis point appreciation. Market was upbeat with 19 gainers and 13 losers to sustain positive market breadth, while activity level also improved with 68 and 135%, 68 and 135%, both in volume and value traded, respectively. We saw Palm, Cote d'Ivoire, and Nestle were the major gainers in the session, as all the subsectors also closed higher in the session. The higher close also pushed the year-to-date return to 4.09% for the BRVM composite index. Positive sentiment is also expected to be sustained in today's session, just like we've seen in the last couple of trading days. That market seemed to be upbeat, and we believe this should continue in today's session. In Ghana, the index remained positive as well, as we saw a significant upward movement in the benchmark index at close of market, largely driven by gains in Guinness Ghana as well as MTN Ghana. We've seen both local and foreign investors in that market continue to go long, with about 500% increase in both volume and value in the session. I think that's been the trend. We will continue to see multiples of maybe 100, 200% increase in volume and value in that market. The index closed the day 4.33% higher in a session that recorded no loser, just like the previous session as well, where we had two gainers and no loser. Like we mentioned yesterday, MTN continued to dominate activity level with 3.9 million units traded in that session. Yet the return of the market is now 37.64%, and we expect market to be largely driven by MTN in today's session. So moving to Lagos, the all-share index started the week on a negative note, shedding 10 basis points on the back of late sell down that we saw in WAPCO, which pushed the daily return of that counter to 948 bips loss. We also saw losses in MTN, Zenith, and a few other smaller cap names. Well, on the positives, though they couldn't lift market, where international bureaus with 962 bips close to recover from previous sessions sell down, while FBNH and Access also recorded gains. We saw renewed interest in the shares of some of the banks like Access and FBNH, while investors stayed away from GTB and Zenith, as most of the trades occurred on the sell side in those two names. That's on GTB and Zenith. Okay, so this lifted activity level. That's the trades that we saw in those banks. This lifted activity levels. That's the volume and value to improve by 29 and 49% accordingly. The banks accounted for about 50% of trades, though the sector closed lower, negative 32 bips. In that session, consumer goods was the only sector that gained, largely supported by the gain we saw in international bureaus. So aside major crosses, we saw in WAPCO, Zenith, and MTN, market was quiet with most activities in the banks, just like I mentioned earlier. So going into today, like we mentioned yesterday, market activity will continue to overrun current level with mixed outcome. Also with Q1 earnings all released, direction will be mainly dominated by names with better than expected Q1 results, and then banks, based on the liquidity level in that sector, will continue to dominate activity charts, while markets maintain flat to negative outcome in the day. So that'll be it for equities markets. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you, Sean. We will now move to look for his outlook for MTN's 2021 numbers. Good morning,
Luke. Thank you, Chidozie, and good morning, everyone. Like Chidozie said, I will be taking us through the performance of MTN in the first quarter. The company's results was really impressive. Came in far better than what we had expected. For instance, revenue was up 17% to 385 billion. That was 3% more than what we had expected. And because of the improvements we saw further down the income statement, profit after tax was up 43% to 74 billion. And again, that was 32% more than what we had initially expected. So overall, the company's performance in the first quarter was really outstanding, going by several metrics. To start with, revenue was up 17% year-on-year to 385 billion. And that was mainly driven by the 43% we saw in data revenue. Data revenue was up 43%, like I said, to 105 billion. That was more than our estimate of 95 billion. We could all recall that last year, the Nigerian Communications Commission suspended the registration of new SIM cards, also suspended the reactivation of misplaced SIM cards. And as a result of that, we saw like a consistent monthly decline in MTN's subscriber base, which declined from about 80 million subscribers in December 2020 to about 75 million subscribers in March 2021. And because of this, we had expected data revenue to slow, to come in slower than what it did. But however, due to stronger than expected increased data demand from active subscribers during the period, data revenue was up 41% to 105 billion. Voice revenue as well wasn't left out. That segment was up 8% year-on-year. Was up 8% year-on-year to 209 billion, in line with our estimate of 208 billion. And that itself was also impressive, given the fact that, we've already started seeing like an increasing preference for cheaper substitutes like cost through over-the-top services like calls via WhatsApp, Skype, etc. And because of the heightened inflationary environment, we saw cost pressures on various cost line items. So as a result of that, operating cost for the year was up 15% to 181 billion. slightly below our estimate of 185 billion. However, despite this, EBITDA margin improved to 53% from 52% last year. This was mainly driven by the two-digit growth we saw in revenue. In absolute terms, EBITDA was up 19% to 205 billion. And after accounting for depreciation and net finance charges, profit after tax for the period was up 43% to 74 billion. For the rest of the year, we expect to see more gains. We expect to see more gains in MTN's subscriber base, given the fact that the NCC has now lifted the suspension on new SIM card registration. So what that means is that we are going to be seeing like a continual increase in the company's subscriber base, and that should translate to improvements in revenue going forward, especially for the data segment. Going by our revised projections for the company, we expect revenue to increase by 20% to 1.6 trillion naira, and expect profit after tax to increase by 41% to 290 billion naira, which is going to give a return on average equity of about 130%, higher than 125% that we saw last year. So overall, I mean, we still see MTN as a company that will return sustainable value to shareholders. And after accounting for the revised projections, we now have a new target price of 228 naira per share, which means that our buy rating on the stock is maintained. So that's pretty much the update for MTN. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lee. We will now move to Omorige for fixed income and currencies. Good morning, Omorige.
Good morning, Chidozie. Good morning, everybody. I'll start with the money market. So after the money market opened 288.49 billion positive on Friday, there were two possible outcomes going forward. One, the money market will build on the positive liquidity figures recorded on Friday by opening positive in subsequent trading sessions. Two, the money market will return to the negative region despite the positive figures recorded on Friday. In hindsight, the positive figures recorded on Friday was a one-off as system returned to the negative region to open 23 billion short yesterday. Adjusting for repos, the market was down by about 33 billion. This was largely due to the FS retail funding and CRR debit that happened on Friday, as both of them drained system liquidity. So despite the OMO maturities of 30 billion that came in yesterday, interbank rate remained in the double-digit region to trade around 13 to 15%. So our expectation for today is that the money market will trade at similar levels in the absence of any significant funding pressure. So moving on to the FS market, the parallel market remains stable to trade at 485 naira to $1. The earning window trade at a high of 422 naira to $1, closing at 411 naira to $1. That's a 1 naira depreciation from what we saw on Friday, which was 410 naira to $1. The earning industry turnover decreased significantly to close at $42.59 million yesterday, coming from $56.81 million recorded on Friday. We expect the Naira to continue to trade at these levels. Moving on to the T-bills market. The T-bills market was awash with activities yesterday, with just a few trades to show for it. We saw a lot of offers, a lot of bids on the long end of the benchmark curve, particularly April 14, 2022 and April 28, 2022. Bids seen on those papers were around 8.65% levels. Despite the increased demand witnessed in the TB space yesterday, few trades were consummated across the benchmark curve, and this was largely due to the paucity of the long-dated NTBs in the market. We also saw slight activity in the OMO segment with just few trade debts at about 9% levels, rather sub 9% levels. So our expectation for today is that the TBs market will continue to trade actively in the interim as investors continue to hunt for high returns on money market instruments. I'll conclude with the bonds market. The bonds market resumed the month with more activity in that space, especially on the long end of the benchmark curve, as traditional buy-side players cherry-picked attractive bond offers. We saw rates at 14% levels and above across the 2034 to the 2050 maturities. The offers on the 2024 were around 12.25% levels, while the 2026 were offered at 12.7% levels and above. There was mild demand on the short end of the benchmark curve with few trades consummated, but the mid-tenor bond witnessed little demand. This, despite the tightening of the bid and ask spread, few trades were still consummated on that end. Our expectation for today is that the current bearishness witnessed in the bond space will continue to persist, barring any shock to the system. That concludes the presentation for fixed income. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Morgan. We will now conclude with Temple from Frontier Africa Reports and their updates. Good morning, Temple.
Good morning, all. Good morning, Chidozie, and good morning, listeners, and thank you for this opportunity. We'll look at what's going on across the continent, where key for us was the visit of Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan to Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya yesterday. And they had a deep conversation, a couple of highlights from the meeting. Number one is the gas pipeline deal that they signed, and it's something that they do hope will reduce the cost of electricity supply between both countries. There's also the plan to reduce the barriers to bilateral trades, because again, if you recall, before John Magufuli, the former president of Tanzania, died in March, the relationship between Tanzania and Kenya had grew strained. So now they're looking to neutralize that opposition or the brawl between them and see how they can work out things seamlessly. More significantly is that both countries have now agreed to also collaborate on the use of health officials to reduce COVID-19 between both countries. As we know, the influx of people from Tanzania to Kenya, which is a region where they did not recognize COVID-19 pandemic, is one of the key reasons why there's the resurgence of COVID-19 pandemic in Kenya. So that is something that they are both hoping to stem with this visit that's commenced yesterday. Ghana now overtook South Africa in terms of gold production. Data that came out yesterday shows that the data is actually for the 2018 calendar year. Output for Ghana increased by 14% to 4.8 million ounces compared to 4.2 million ounces for South Africa. South Africa used to be the dominant player in the global sector of gold, but now, given the shrinking state of things in that country, the high cost of production, industrial actions by staffers, and then you have geological challenges of tapping into the deepest mine. All that's put together has been reducing the output of gold in South Africa. As you know, Anglo Gold, Ashanti, and Goldfields Limited that are dominant in South Africa have now started divesting into countries like even Ghana as well to join dominant players like Newmont in Ghana. South Africa's Sibanye Gold has also been downsizing its workforce in recent time, and they are also diversifying into Platinum Group. What's more, we've got Zimbabwe's Central Bank keeping policy rate at 40%. They plan to remain conservative with their monetary policies. Lusaka Stock Exchange is launching an app today at 8:30 a.m. local time to enhance trading. And finally, Morocco's foreign remittances from diaspora, Moroccans in diaspora, was up for the first quarter of this year by 41.8% to equivalent of $2.3 billion in the first quarter of this year. And if you compare that with what they did in Q1 2020, it's a massive growth, because in Q1 2020 it was $1.6 billion. And we understand that travel receipts is on decline, travel expenditure is on decline, because as you know, the country suspended is still in state of emergency, suspending air, lands, and water travels. 50 countries, they don't have to fly, they can't fly to 50 countries. They suspended air travels agreements with 50 countries in recent time. Balance of trade is also on decline in the country. So, but apparently the remittances have been a positive one for them in recent time. These are the stories we're looking at for today, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Temple. We have now come to the question and answer portion of the meeting. If you have a question and you would like to speak, you may raise your hand on the app and we will give you an opportunity to ask your question, or you may use the comment function, while those joining us on Facebook may use the comment function as well. I see Shewa has his hand up. Shewa, you can go ahead with your question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chidozie. Just a quick question to Luke on MTN, just to find out if there's an update with the PSB license that MTN is yet to get from CBN. Is a timeline for this, and factoring this into their results going forward, if at all they're able to secure this license this year. I believe that should also be a major improvement in their top line. Do you have any updates in that regard, and what do you think the impact will be on the company's revenue?
Okay. Thank you, Shane, for your question. That's an interesting one. So as of now, the CBN has not granted license to MTN to operate its payment service bank. However, it looks more like it's just a matter of time before the company is granted that license. Then in terms of the impact on the company's performance when the license is granted, for now it's hard to tell. But what we are reasonably sure of is that we are not going to see a material impact on the company's performance in the near term. However, in the long run, as the company continues to explore the unbanked communities in Nigeria, we expect that to actually support turnover significantly, but that's going to be in the long run. In the near term, we don't think we are going to see any major impact on the company's performance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any further questions with regards to what any of the speakers have said today? I see we have no further questions. We have come to the conclusion of our meeting. On behalf of Vetiva Capital Management and our media partners at Frontier Africa Reports, we would like to thank you for joining us today. We continue to encourage everyone to keep safe, and we look forward to having you join us again tomorrow at 8:30. We hope everyone has a good day. Good morning.